If you're interested in what I look like in real life and want to learn more about me, then follow my Instagram page at Joe the Insomniak. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say that I love you all and I hope you're all having a great day. As a thought, if you're feeling depressed or down, remember that things do get better and there is light out there for you. There are better days, I can promise you that they do actually come. And if you need proof of this, then just look at me. I was down further than words could have ever described, but I managed to get out of it, and you can too. Think, even if things aren't going right for you now, and the circumstances are working against you when you're doing the right things, it's not your fault. They're just circumstances and not you. They're bad times, but they'll pass. You have to be greater than your circumstances and keep going. So I love you all and have a great day. This happened just last night, and honestly I'm still a little shaken over it. I work evenings as a dispatcher in a small medium-sized Midwestern town. I was driving home at 2 AM when I stopped for gas. In retrospect, it was stupid I stopped at all. The gas station was poorly lit and completely empty of any customer cars. But I knew the shady areas of town, and this was not usually one of them. As I was pumping gas, I noticed a middle-aged woman sitting on the curb across a parking lot. It's a cold night and just started raining. The woman was not wearing the weather-appropriate clothing, so drenched. When the woman saw that I was watching her, she called out to me from across the parking lot. My second moment of stupid decisions was choosing to engage with her. I was worried for her, so I approached her to see if she wants some help. Hi beautiful, I'm just trying to get home, but no one's gonna help me. I see you're a taxi driver, and I'm trying to get from city A to city B. I could really do with your help. I've been out here for ages. Can you help me? Now, I don't usually give money to panhandlers, but she seems genuine. The weather was terrible, and there's lots of job centres around that are shutting down, so I agree. I tell her I don't have cash, but if she comes inside, I'll give her a couple of dollars. Now, the ATM isn't working. I apologise and told her that there's nothing else I can do. She follows me back outside, idly chatting with me as I get to my driver's door. She then says, "But you're a cab driver," and gets in. I was totally shocked to really say anything. I sat there and watched as she buckles herself in like it's a completely normal situation. As soon as she got into my car, her demeanour changed. She's no longer anxious, she's now restless. "Just take me to my aunt's house, she can give you money." Of course alarm bells are going off in my head, although my first instinct is to tell her to get out of my car. My gut tells me that if she does, it's not dangerous, but she's already proved that she's unpredictable and high, and I don't know if she has a weapon. Forcing her out of my vehicle, I thought I had the potential to avoid a violent interaction. "Why are you asking me?" I finally said. "Just start driving, I'll tell you later." "No, if you want me to consider driving you, I need you to tell me where you want me to go." I never had an intention of driving her. She said, "Don't worry, honey. I'm not just one of the bad people here. I'm not going to rob you, just drive." "No," I repeat. "What's her address?" "Okay, it's Street A." "What's her house number?" As I was asking her questions, she gets agitated. We still had not left the gas station parking lot. I considered getting out of the car and going into the gas station for help, but A, she seemed to know and be friendly with the one attendant who's inside when I tried to get money, and B, I wasn't about to leave my car alone. Finally she snapped to me and said, "Why are you asking me questions? You don't trust me." I then said, I work at the police department, it's my job, and she flips out, yelling at me, calling me a snitch, about trying to get her in trouble and just losing her darn mind. At this point, I'm more scared than ever. I just want her gone, but my instincts told me asking her to get out of my car couldn't work, so I decided to take a risk. I say I'm not a police officer, I just work at a police department. Why don't I take you to Walmart and see if they have ATMs at work? My idea was to get her out of my car as peacefully as possible and get her into the store. She likes my idea and immediately calms down. I know that it's incredibly risky driving off with a stranger in the car, but it seems my best option at the time. As we're driving, she keeps asking me to take her home. Her thoughts are erratic, literally bouncing all over the place. It was really like a look into a crazy person's mind. Here's some of our conversation. I'm glad we're friends now. I have about 6 people trying to get me. I'm gonna come to your work tomorrow so you can go arrest them together. Okay, we can talk about that tomorrow. You said you're trying to get home, right? Yeah, I'm trying to get to this city. Then I said, I thought you needed to go to the other one. She said, yeah, that's what I meant. That's why the cab ride is $40 away. I said, the cab ride is $40? She said, yeah. You said you had $40. I do, but I mean it's 60. There's now silence. Are you sure you can't take me to my aunt's house? She lives close. I thought you said she lived somewhere different. No, I meant that one. But it don't matter because she won't give you the money anyway. You sure you can't just take me to my city? Now it was terrifyingly obvious that this woman was not talking sense. The details of her story are constantly changing. We pulled into Walmart and she finally gets out of the car. I told her before we went to find an ATM that I need to use the restroom. My plan was to call the police from inside a stall, but she followed me into the bathroom. This is where she effectively corners me. I bolt out of there and lean against a barrier. I then said, you know, I have some friends at the police department that can probably help you better than I can. I'm just going to call them and we can figure this out. Again, at the mention of cops, she starts to really flip out. I kept retaining that the police would help her. She snapped to me that she was going to leave and stormed out of the bathroom, but it wasn't over yet. I waited to make sure she was really gone, but sure enough, not 60 seconds after she left, she came back into the bathroom and started banging on the stall, and said something that scared the life out of me, saying, hey, come back to the car with me. I left my beer in your car. I blatantly tell her no. I saw her getting into my car and she had absolutely no beer with her. I waited a good 5 minutes before exiting the bathroom. I immediately found a manager who called the police. Thankfully I was in a different police jurisdiction from the one I worked in, but I was mortified at how entirely stupid I'd been the whole night. The police officer that responded took my statement and advised me to be more careful in the future. He said that sometimes panhandlers turn violent, and that just recently there had been a report of a woman who matched her description assaulting a Samaritan trying to help her. I definitely learned a lesson on stranger danger. I'm lucky to have come out unscathed. I'm glad that my stupidity didn't kill me. This happened last year, at the peak of my partying stage. I was in my friend's house drinking at around 2 AM. I was pretty drunk and decided to call an Uber to take me home. The car pulled up and I have this habit of sitting at the front with the driver. He's a young man, around late 20s, and I don't remember too much about what we're talking about, but I do really recall his compliments going from "you're really pretty" to "you're really hot." And his compliments didn't stop there though. He kept on saying I reminded him of his mom. What? I didn't expect it to say that, Jesus. And it reminded him of his mom. I found it really strange, so did I. But I tried to laugh it off because I didn't want to appear rude. I asked him to swing by the drive-thru at a burger spot because I'm hungry. We got the food and he was supposed to take me home, but I noticed he was driving literally the opposite way of where my home was. I look at his map and it kept telling him to turn around, so I asked him where we're going, and I remembered him looking over at me saying, "Oh, you don't want to come over to mine?" I remember I completely sobered up and said, "No, take me home now." I don't recall if we continued talking after that, but he realised how sober I was and took me home, seeing I had my phone in my hand. I never heard from him again. I also reported him the next day. What really upset me is that man clearly knew I was out of it and was going to take advantage of me. I can't imagine what would have happened if I had never spoken up. With the recent stories about fake Ubers, I thought I'd share my encounter. Freshman year of college, first semester, I had a chem test coming up, so I started walking to a building on campus, and as I'm walking, I start talking to this girl near me and discovered that she's also in the same class. She told me she's going to some study with some super smart kid and invited me to join. We study in the library for a couple of hours and the kid leaves. She said she's hungry and asked if I wanted to go get some food. At this point I was like, yeah, sure. We go to the Quaboa near campus and eat. The hell is that? And study a little more. By midnight, we decide we should probably go home and she wants to get an Uber. Even though we weren't terribly far from our dorms, I call one and we stand outside talking. Soon a car rolls up to us. The window rolls down and the Uber driver calls out, "Hey, I'm your Uber, get in." I started walking towards it, but something didn't seem right. It was a weird white sedan. I was thinking, this guy's car's crap. Moreover, the man was just off-putting. I don't want to stereotype, but he seemed like one of those sketchy dudes on the side of the street type. I pause, and he more aggressively starts telling us to get in the car. I tell the girl to wait, and I open up my Uber app and look at the car description, and it's nowhere near that of the creeps. I tell him, "You're not my Uber," and he starts getting frustrated and keeps telling us that it's him, until a pair of headlights emerged from behind him. Once he saw those, he started laughing like a maniac and suddenly stepped on the gas pedal and zoomed off. We're shaking now. The car behind him stops in front of us and rolls the window down, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go again. I'm sure they're together. I make sure my app's are right and the car description matches. It's the correct Uber. Moral of the story is always make sure you're getting into the right car. You never know what weirdo could be lurking. I just had a creepy encounter. As soon as I got home, I had an anxiety attack and was very nauseous. I'm now calm and would like to recount what happened a few hours ago after I left work. I work at a bar in the suburb of Melbourne. This is safe during the day, but has become sort of notorious for being dodgy during the night time, specifically along this main street that my work is on. I often work in night shifts or late shifts. Today I finish at 11. For some context, I'm a 19-year-old small girl. So I got out of work at 11 and started to walk down the street, which is quite well lit in some parts but quite dark in others, and begin looking for a taxi to haul. I was having zero luck finding one, honestly. In fact, there are very few cars about, which is unusual. I look across the road and saw a dude with a hoodie on that was concealing a lot of his face. He looks young, in his mid to late 20s, and high on something. He seems quite shady to me, and I noticed that he's very tall but thin. I guess I looked at him for a while because he's crossed the street towards me. I stopped looking at him and start walking sort of fast down the street, looking behind me to keep my eyes on his distance and to now more desperately get in a taxi. I turn around to look at him, and to my relief, he was walking into a side street. I stepped onto the street trying to get a better view down the road when he came back from the side street. My stomach dropped as I saw he was now with two more guys. I started to walk really fast now, and they began to walk after me. I was walking as fast as I could without jogging. I was getting really panicked and was thinking of hauling down any car to ask for help. The three men are getting closer and closer and are shouting at me, but my anxiety snuck in and I didn't hear what they said. It was white noise. A taxi with its lights off drove past, and I ran out to the middle of the road. The driver said he was finished for the day and wasn't taking any more customers. I tell him I'm being followed and ask if I can sit in his car for a second to feel safe. He let me in the taxi and drove 20 meters away, telling me to get out. The men are still there. I beg him to take me out of sight a little further. He noticed how scared I was, then got all concerned and fatherly. The taxi driver was lovely and refused to let me get out of his car until we found me another to take me home. He drove around with me for a few minutes until we found one. He beeped the other car down to explain the situation. I thank him profusely. It terrifies me thinking of what them men were plotting and how vulnerable I was in the situation, that I could have easily been on my phone and completely oblivious to the danger. This happened earlier last year and still messes me up thinking about it. For a little backstory, I'm a delivery driver for a certain foods company, and have been doing so as a side gig for the past year or so to earn extra money. I'm also female. Anyway, yeah, it's a super chill job. Although the pay is definitely not ideal, especially at night. Normally any pings I get after 10 PM are just crappy fast food orders to customers who are just there, just out of their mind, drunk normally. Anyway, late night deliveries are already profitable through tips, which is why I barely do them. I, however, on this night last year, find there's a bonus going on. Reach 15 deliveries in a certain time and get an extra $75. Music to my ears. Well, that's the case. Late night deliveries rock because there's no traffic, and it doesn't matter when you're picking stuff up. The faster you can get them done, the faster you can go home and knock out. Open roads all the way for me. I was on a roll and finished my last McD's run at 2:30 in the morning, cash my bonus and call it a night. For context, this took place in downtown San Diego. Downtown SD has fun restaurants and clubs at the core, but as you branch out, it gets more seedy. Once you get past 16th Street, it gets hella shady. Lots of homeless. The works. I actively try and avoid the area, but in order to get back home and on the freeway, I have to pass through the neighborhood. One more piece of information. I drive a crappy old Ford and nothing's automatic. In order to roll down the window, you have to crank the lever. Because it's a hassle to roll them up and down manually each time, when I do deliveries, I just keep both my windows rolled down because it's easier to pick up / deliver through the windows. This night, I had my windows down as usual. I was planning to roll them up before I passed 16th Street, where the homeless camp was, but didn't get that far. As I turn down a side street heading towards the main drag, up ahead I see a man in one of those orange reflective construction vests standing on the side of the road. There's always some sort of construction going on downtown, and it's pretty common for it to happen at night, so I didn't really pay much attention. As I get closer though, the man stops in the middle of the street waving his arms. I begin slowing down, thinking that he's going to direct traffic or something. I brake to 10, then 5, leaving distance trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. He breaks out into a jog towards my car, stopping directly in front of it, blocking me and my car from moving forward. God, immediate unease. This is weird. I'm really wishing that my windows were done up. People are talking about fight or flight, and I've always wondered how I'd react in that situation. Now I know, my reaction is to freeze, because as I was slowing down, it hit me 5 seconds later that I should not have. The guy's not a construction worker. He has on a hard hat and vest, but the creepiest smile I've ever seen in my life. At first I thought he was just smiling to be friendly, but smiling to acknowledge someone longer than a few seconds is not normal. Try it right now, count to 5 in your head while grinning and you'll see what I mean. Exactly what he's doing. Now that he's in front of me, I can tell he's homeless, or I don't know. He's an older guy. I guess 60s, but homelessness has a way of making everyone appear old, so who knows really, but he's just staring at me, wide-eyed smiling, all teeth. Honestly, his smile and mannerisms, the best way I can describe it is Twisty from American Horror film. Literally though, the guy looks insane. I obviously should have reversed, but my brain was panicking and I didn't think that fast. I was instead frozen in my car thinking, this is how I'm gonna die. This whole time he's not saying a thing, just leering. Then like a ninja, he jumps onto the hood of my car and slams his fists against my hood. I'm frozen in terror just watching this guy. He starts pounding on the hood of my car, crawling around on his hands and knees. Not saying anything, just crawling and staring at me. That was the most terrifying part. That he never breaks eye contact once during all of this and never stops grinning. The thought of my windows being open made me want to throw up, but at the same time, breaking eye contact and moving to roll them up felt scarier. Like if I made any sudden movements or looked away, he'd try and get inside. He never says a word. I think it would have been less scary if he said something, but he didn't. Just pounded his fists on the car and stared. All in reality, this whole time, it probably lasted seconds, but felt like days. I'm freaking out, and before I can gain the sense to do anything remotely intelligent, I see headlights in my rearview mirror coming up from behind me down the street. The man sees them too, and in an instant he jumps off my car, runs from behind me towards a new car. Jesus, I floor it and don't look back until I'm halfway home on the freeway. At this point it's all adrenaline. For a long time after that I stopped delivering at night. I sure as hell don't want to go down that section of road again anymore. I take the longer route home, and I don't drive with the windows down at night if it's in an even remotely run down area. What I realised from this is how naive I can be just to go onto autopilot to deal with situations because someone has a uniform. Like, I didn't even question slowing down at first, even though it is a situation that was really sketchy. The opposite actually in my mind. I was confronted and confirmed by the fact that somebody trustworthy was on the road. Suspicious thoughts went by like, oh nice, a public servant doesn't want to make a wrong turn. By the time I stopped, it would have already been too late if the guy decided to attack me, and I shudder thinking about it. I calmed down eventually by reassuring myself that this is probably just a crazy guy on drugs who meant no harm. But it might not have been. The fact that this guy is dressed as a worker on the road, deliberately behaving normal at first, is a part that really scares me. I pray to God I never have a similar experience in my life. I can say though that I learnt from this one. The weirdest thing that ever happened to me was when I was getting a taxi in New York one night. I remember getting into the taxi and telling the driver my address. He didn't say anything to me, but he just started driving. Immediately I sensed something was wrong. What's worse is he pressed the door lock button. I look at the lock and thank God it hasn't engaged fully. I jump out of the car screaming. He panics and speeds off, literally driving past oncoming traffic. I didn't get a chance to take his reg plate down. I'm just glad I got out of the situation. It was a miracle that the door didn't actually lock when he pressed the button. I once met up with an old friend of mine. A friend I'd known for a few years prior to meeting up in November 2017. I had actually met this person on a date site. However, as time went on, the relationship between us came strictly a normal one. There were no red flags. My gut did not warn me, so I completely trusted this person. We met up in town, behind a bus station, on a grassy hill surrounded by trees and a tall wall. Our meeting was just to smoke and catch up. The meetup was fine. I had actually started a few months before, so I was relatively new to it. He had brought some new types for me to try out. We spoke about random things, about work, random stuff. About half an hour later, I started feeling very lightheaded and anxious. I suddenly had this strange feeling where I did not feel comfortable at all and really wanted to go home. When I asked him if I could go home, he offers to take me, but I said no. It's okay. He offers again. Please let me take you home. You'll be safe with me, I'm not gonna hurt you. I shook my head and said no thank you, I can take myself. When I started to walk away, I felt like I was walking on a cloud and my head became dizzy, eyesight blurry, but I never felt like this before and I started to panic. We made our way downhill and towards a bus station and I'm relieved, as there's a lot of people around, so if anything happened, someone would step in. I become terrified of him. I had this horrible feeling in my gut that told me I have to get away from him, and when I got to the bus station, I told him I would call my taxi here and go home. His tone was no longer nice but very stern. I'm gonna take you home now. And he began to pull at my jacket. I told him no, that I was gonna make my own way. He pulls my jacket harder and I fell against him. He pulls me into him and told me not to be afraid. I was so terrified at this point. I feel very paranoid and can't see properly. I push him away, rubbing my eyes, calling for a taxi. He tried to pull my phone from me and yell in my face, "Do you ever listen? I'm taking you home." I noticed a few people had stopped to ask if I was okay. All I remember was saying that I want to go home. So a lady kindly calls a taxi for me and waits with me, making sure I'm okay, helping me into the taxi. During the time when I waited for the taxi, he kept trying to get me to come to his car with him, but the lady that looked after me told him to go home and that she was going to take me instead, so he left. When I got home, I gave the taxi driver money and told him to keep the change. I didn't want to wait around. I just wanted to get into my bed because at the time, it was the only place I'd be safe from harm. That evening, I laid in bed for 5 hours straight, staring at the ceiling. I don't remember if I thought about anything, or if my mum came in at any time. I just remembered lying in bed, doing nothing until the paranoia wore off. I remember looking at my phone and seeing I had 32 missed calls from him, 10 voicemails and 50 messages. The messages are weird. He sent around 20 messages just asking where I was and when I got home. One is a voicemail with him saying these weird fantasies about drugging me up. I couldn't listen to the rest. I blocked him on everything, but made sure to call the police first. I've heard nothing from him for over a month, until recently I've received a text on an unknown number asking how I was. Now I hadn't given my number to anyone, so ignore it. I then received another message a few minutes later, saying they miss me, that they'd see me soon. I ask who they are, and I get no reply. I've never heard anything since, so I hope I never see him again. This is a story my grandmother would tell me when she was trying to put the fear of God into me. Honestly, when she's about 30 years old, she went to a major city for a business meeting. I can't remember the specific city, but I believe it was New York, with a huge amount of taxis and whatnot. She was supposed to meet someone at another destination and had the hotel call a taxi. She went outside to wait. She saw a taxi already outside, assuming it was hers, hopping in. She didn't notice anything special about the taxi, telling the driver the address, and off they went. For about 10 minutes she didn't notice they were going a weird way. After 15 minutes she started getting worried, asking the driver where they're going. At this point, they're out of the major city, and she realizes what kind of situation she's in. She tried talking to the driver, but he never spoke a word to her. She notices they're getting closer to a dodgy hotel and made a decision. She noticed he never locks the doors, probably thinking she wouldn't jump out of a moving car. Wrong. He didn't know my grandmother was bad. She tucked her legs in, opens the door, and rolled out. She ran as fast as she could and hid. She saw him go up and down the road a couple of times and eventually leave. When he finally left, she walked down the road to another hotel. She walked in, asking to use their phone. They actually said no, then she demanded to. Eventually they let her use the phone. She called whoever she's supposed to meet and told them where she was and to bring police. They came and she filled out a report and left. The aftermath is that the police raided the hotel and found out it's actually a kidnap house where they force women to do things. She stayed in the same city where she was kidnapped in and finished her work. So this happened about a year ago now, with a girl I used to be friends with in a small town in Ontario, Canada. It's still so insane to me, and I cannot believe it happened. For context, my friend had a laptop that was on its last legs, and we're hoping to have it fixed by a local tech store, so she held a taxi to my apartment building, and we agreed to split the $10 it would cost. Once the taxi arrives, the middle-aged man driving immediately sets off alarm bells. He asks us how old we are, if we live alone, why we're heading to the tech store, etc. When my friend tells him about the laptop, he starts to tell us how he fixes computers all the time, and if we go back home with him, he'd buy it off her, and she politely declines. Now please keep in mind that the entire time, he's taking weird back streets, turning around for no reason, and in general trying to extend the ride for as long as he possibly can. At one point, he makes a U-turn in an intersection against 2 rows of incoming traffic. I think we're about to die, I mean Jesus. My friend grows irritated at this point because not only is he driving like a madman, the meters now are a good $20 over the initial 5 ride. She tells him that she'll pay for the original fare and that she's not going to do anything above it. He's clearly trying to get more money out of her. He then reaches up to turn the meter off and insists that we don't have to pay him. And God, I just wish it ended here. We get to the tech store, get out, and crazy cab driver asks if we want to wait for him to get back. We tell him no and go into the store, and not even 5 minutes later we see him enter staring at us. He parks the cab, then proceeds stalking us throughout the store, whispering behind us about how these employees don't know what they're doing and we should go back with him, etc. At this point we're terrified and make a beeline towards the cash, with him following us the entire time, despite my friend telling him to leave us alone. When we finally get the cash, the guy behind the counter looks at me asking if everything's okay. I waste no time telling him to call security and that we didn't know this crazy man. As the crazy starts to realise the cashier has alerted security, he screams. I mean, honestly, really screaming, and my friend, trying to get closer to her, claiming she owes him $30 for a cab fare, and my friend yells at him that she does not owe him anything. The security guards eventually make their way in between them, forcing him out the door with him still yelling. Now thank God the kindest woman there happened to be in the store, who witnesses the whole event with her 2 sons, and they offer to give us a ride home and punch a cab driver if she sees him again. We're a bit shaky, so we accept the help home. A couple of hours later though, my friend gets a phone call. The driver's gone and filed a criminal complaint against her, alleging that not only had she been alone in the taxi, but she verbally assaulted him, threatening him with a weapon, refusing to pay the fare, which apparently costs $35 now. The officer on the other end informed her of a specific date for her to appear to court to appeal the charges, and that she was banned from hiring from the company again. In the end, he drops the charges. She remained banned from the taxi service for another 8 months, and we never used the company again, and he got off scot-free with his job intact. Crazy, I know. I work at a retail store, and I detest my job with all my heart, and because I was stupid and said I am always available, they routinely mess me over, putting me on nights. I moan and digress though. I'm okay working nights since I get to see my boyfriend when he picks me up. My boyfriend usually gets off at 10:30, but he doesn't leave until 11, so most nights I'd have to wait. On top of that, he has to make a 10-minute drive, so I potentially have to wait an hour or maybe 40 minutes, but that didn't bother me. He'd call me and tell me he was coming to make sure I'm still alive. Earlier in the week, an Uber driver kept asking me if I was someone named Lenore. I told him no, but he did it again and again, this time asking if I was sure. How am I not sure of my name? Fortunately, my boyfriend pulled in and honked at me, causing the weird Uber driver to speed away. I'm a paranoid penny, so this made me wonder if he'd been watching me and knew my boyfriend always came late. And then I tweaked out that since I kept getting these weird phone calls from some weird telemarketing agency, but when I answered no one is there and they hang up, is it connected? I don't know. Fast forward 3 days later, and I'm standing here listening to some music waiting for him to pick me up or call. He finally does, and he starts cracking a joke about how he's glad the creepy Uber guy didn't answer. As we start talking and joking, this woman comes up. I don't hear her at first as I have noise cancelling headphones. She gets closer and keeps calling to me yelling hey. I look over at her and smile and then go back to texting. She does it again. I say hi, can I help? Do you need a ride? She says, and she looks. Seems nice enough, but something didn't settle with me. Her car is parked at the stop sign and there's no one else in it. No, my friend is coming to thank you. I notice there's a man in the driver's seat and that she isn't wearing a uniform from either the store or us. She begins to ask again, are you sure? I can give a ride. Do you need one? Get in. Do you need a ride? I begin to feel a little uncomfortable and my preschool doesn't get in a stranger's train and kicks in, so I politely decline. I say to my boyfriend, are you close? Just pulled out, I'll get there. Just down the line, is a woman gone? No, she wasn't gone, in fact, she's standing 6 feet away from me. And she looks annoyed. I told him in code that no, she's not left. She has in fact remained there, leaning on the car, just watching me. And she is looking angrier with every passing moment. Out of the corner of my eye, I tell the man tell her something and she looks very annoyed at me. Friend's not here, do you need a ride? Where friend? He probably forgot you. That's okay, we give ride. It's cold, get in, tell us where you live. At this point, she begins getting closer to me. I try to avoid her by moving to the other end of the plaza strip. Honey? So, yeah. What about my sister? Well, she's gotten closer, but I'm pretty scared. She's too far away from here, something might happen. Hurry up so I can tell you. I say in code as a car drives up. Now she looks annoyed. Get in the car now. We give you ride. Get in. At this point, she opens the car and begins trying to get me inside, pulling me, yanking me on my jacket. She's taller, so tries picking me up. At this point, I'm screaming and kicking, wiggling away. Meanwhile, I can hear him yelling at me that he's coming, and now he's called the police. Now my mind is running 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm panicking, thinking that I'm gonna get abducted for this weird husband of hers, since he looks content with her effort to kidnap me. Get in, I'll hit you, she says. I start crying as she manages to get my torso in the car. My right hand is locked on my phone and she begins trying to make it. But my boyfriend is panicking, telling me the police are sending an officer. She shoves my face into the seat. Now my airway is obstructed and she's not letting go. She's bigger than me and stronger and knows it. Her whole weight's on me. I'm trying to not panic so I don't black out from lack of air. Her husband's saying something in Punjabi, and she lifts one hand up and leans down, trying to get something from the front. I immediately use the arms I've been using to push myself off the seat and stabbing her in the stomach. She recoils, letting go of me a little, and I headbutt her torso. I'm really scared, but finally my boyfriend pulls in. I manage to get away, bolt into his car, and the Indian woman is now sitting on the ground. After I shut the door, he speeds off towards her house. When I get in, I break down, babbling about how scared and terrifying it all is, and how if he hadn't come, God knows what would have happened. After this incident, the police officer he dispatched got there more than 20 minutes after and can't find anyone. My boyfriend talks to the boss and he was granted the ability to leave early for me. I'm still weirded out by the car stolen in the plaza. I was also a little upset that my war cry was a line from the King of Hill. I'm just glad I'm safe now.